God described the most terrifying creature he ever made. Not as a warning, not as a lesson, as a boast. The creature's name is Leviathan, and the way God speaks about it in the oldest texts should terrify you. Not because of what Leviathan can do, but because of what it reveals about the mind that built it. We were always told this story was about human humility. A man named Job, crushed by suffering, screaming at the heavens for an answer, and God silences him, not with comfort, not with an explanation, but by forcing him to look at something far worse. But read the ancient words again, every specific word, because there is something underneath the lesson, something darker. This isn't just a lecture, it is a confession from a creator who made something so monstrous, so anatomically impossible, that even he couldn't stop staring at it. This is the story of Leviathan, the only creature God ever described with what sounds disturbingly like pride. Chapter 1. The Anatomy of a God. It begins in a whirlwind. Job is broken, raw. He has lost everything: his family, his health, his certainty that the world makes sense. He screams at the heavens, demanding to know why, and the heavens answer, but not with comfort. God's voice does not explain Job's suffering. It doesn't offer peace. Instead, it peels back the skin of reality and forces Job to look at what hides beneath it. First comes Behemoth, a titan of bone and muscle that drinks rivers dry. But that is only the prelude. Then God drags Job's mind down, into the dark, into the crushing, lightless abyss, and he begins to describe Leviathan. But what follows is not a description, it is a dissection. Can you drag its mass from the depths with a hook? God asks. Can you crush its tongue with a cord? Can you put a ring through its nose and lead it like cattle? Every question is a reminder of human limits. Can you tame it? Can you break it? Can you turn it into a plaything for your children? The implication is cold and absolute. You are fragile, temporary things. Leviathan is something else entirely. Then the tone of God's voice shifts. It becomes something more intimate, more unsettling. I will not be silent about its limbs, he says, its terrifying power, or the horror of its form. This is no longer instruction. This is something that sounds far more like admiration. Chapter 2. The Artist of Terror. God begins to describe the creature's body with the precision of an obsessed craftsman. And the details are where the true nightmare lives. Its back is not scales, not in the way we think of scales. It is rows of interlocking bone plates, fused together under such pressure that not even air can pass between them. When the creature moves, they grind against each other with a sound like mountains being slowly crushed. Its flesh is not flesh in any normal sense. It is a single, solid mass, a living wall of muscle so dense it cannot be pierced. A sword does not break against it. A sword vaporizes on impact. To Leviathan, iron is no different from rotting wood. Then the horror deepens. Its mouth is not a mouth in any way we would recognize. The friction of its internal mechanics sparks into reality as light. Out of its mouth leap torches, the text says. Sparks pour out. Smoke billows from its nostrils like a churning, boiling cauldron. Every breath is a wave of searing heat rolling outward in every direction. The air it exhales can set coal ablaze. This is not an animal. It is a living weapon, one God crafted with his own hands. Strength is fused to its neck, he declares, and despair writhes before it. When Leviathan rises from the water, the sea itself boils into white, frothing chaos. It leaves a glowing scar on the ocean. And on all the earth God proclaims, there is nothing like it. It was made without fear. It gazes down on everything that considers itself proud. It is king over all the children of pride. Chapter 3. an exercise in worthlessness. For centuries, theologians framed this passage as a lesson in humility, and they were right, but only halfway. God is forcing Job to confront the unbridgeable chasm between a human life and true, absolute power. The logic is delivered without mercy. If you cannot even comprehend the anatomy of one creature I have made, then how could you ever claim to understand the mind that designed it? Leviathan is the ultimate answer to human arrogance. A walking, breathing monument to everything humanity is not. Eternal, unbreakable, and utterly without fear. In other mythologies across the ancient world, monsters exist to be slain. They are obstacles. They define the hero by being defeated. But Scripture refuses that story. Leviathan is not God's rival. It is not chaos opposed to creation. Psalm 104 says God formed it to play in the sea. This engine of absolute power is, in the end, a divine toy. The message to Job is delivered without warmth. The universe is full of forces you will never control, never understand, and never survive. If God can casually create something of such perfect, unimaginable power, then perhaps He can also handle the details of one man's suffering. The lesson is designed to shatter arrogance completely. You do not need to understand what God has already mastered. Chapter 4, The Monster's Mirror. But that only tells half the story. It explains what the speech does to Job. It doesn't explain the way God speaks. This is not the voice of a teacher walking through a curriculum. There is a relish in the words, a deep, unsettling intimacy. When God says, "I will not conceal its limbs," or the horror of its form, He is not issuing a warning to humanity. He is lingering. He is returning to something he cannot look away from. This is a creator lost in dark admiration for his own work. The language moves with disturbing care, from the grinding, impenetrable plates of its back, to the fire that erupts from its lungs, to its dominion over every creature that walks the earth. The imagery is not cold or clinical. It is charged. It burns. This is not the language of instruction. It is the language of dark pride. And that is where the deeper terror lives. Because this speech isn't only for Job. It is a moment where God Himself is contemplating His own power, made visible, made physical, given teeth and fire and an indestructible body. He is staring at Leviathan and seeing something reflected back at him. Leviathan is the creature that reminds God of what He is capable of. A living monument to a power that can create not only order and beauty, but something savage, chaotic, and answerable to nothing in existence. And at the end of the description, God asks the question the entire speech was building toward. Who then is able to stand before me? In that moment, Leviathan becomes a mirror. The creature's invincibility is not separate from God's. It is a direct reflection of it. Chapter 5, The Maker's Mark. So, Leviathan is two things at once. It is a lesson for humanity. A cold, anatomical reminder of our fragility in a universe filled with forces we will never understand and never control. But more profoundly, and more disturbingly, Leviathan is God's monument to Himself. It is the one creation described as king. A masterpiece so perfect in its terror that describing it becomes a form of divine self-reflection. It is the living proof that the power which shaped the universe is not only orderly and creative, but also capable of something raw, savage, and magnificent in its ferocity. Leviathan exists to remind us, and perhaps to remind God Himself, that the hand which crafted the lamb also crafted the monster. That the same boundless power which breathed life into every gentle thing in creation also breathed fire into the one creature that could not be touched, tamed, or destroyed by anything walking the earth. It is not chaos. It is not evil. It is something stranger and more unsettling than either. It is the Creator's masterpiece of cosmic horror, and the fact that He could not stop describing it Word by careful word, limb by terrible limb, may be the most revealing thing God ever said about himself. What does it mean that a creator boasted about his most terrifying creation? Leave your answer below. And if you want more journeys into the darkest corners of scripture and myth, you already know what to do.